Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. My name is Cyber Fury, and today I've got a little bit of a different video here. Not going to talk about a particular set of races online. Instead, I'm going to be talking about this event right here. This is the Touring Car 600, which is hosted at Tokyo Expressway for this week. I know I'm not alone in saying that Tokyo Expressway always seems to give me the most difficulty, and this week is no exception. With that in mind, I wanted to walk through how I got through this race just in case anybody's having troubles and looking for a bit of help. Without further ado, let's jump into the car. This is the 2017 Honda NSX that's been slightly modded. I will preface this by saying this probably isn't the most efficient setup for this race, but I do know that it does work and it does not require any sort of wall riding. I'll link a Reddit post down below if you want to see what other people have used for this race, but this is what I used. You also do not need all of the upgrades that are on screen here. The most important ones are the weight reduction, the brake kit, and the fully customizable computer. The main idea is to pump your performance points above the maximum allowed limit and then use the computer to scale it back. You'll see here in the setup screen you want to make sure the right computer is selected and then dial it back until you're under the 600 limit. For me it happened to be 93, for you it might be slightly different depending on what patch or what performance upgrades you have put into the car. For the race itself, I'm going to show you the first lap and then a few overtakes I've had and then my best lap of this race. The reason for this is because you must know that on the first few laps of this race, the track will be wet and it does affect how you need to approach these laps. While the track won't be wet enough to really be a serious concern, you still do need to note that stopping distances are a little bit longer compared to later in the race, like you can see right here going into turn 1 and into turn 2. I'll also give you a couple of important landmarks that I like to keep in terms of fuel saving strategies, but I'll do that on my best lap later in the video so that we can break that down in greater detail. What you'll want to do on the first lap is set the fuel map to 2 the minute the race starts. That way you get a good compromise between maximum power that you can use and not burning through all of the fuel too quickly. For this setup, you'll also want to be rocking the Sport Hard tires. You can use any tires you want really, but I like to use the Sport Hards because I know they're going to last the entire race and not elongate my pit stop when I need to make one. My strategy for this race is do one pit stop and make it as short as humanly possible. Other than that, it's really just normal racing. The NSX has a lot of straight line speed, so you want to use that to your advantage on the straights, and then carry as much momentum as you can through the corners. It helps when you turn in a little bit earlier than you're expecting to on some corners so that you can allow the body roll to push you towards the outside of the track and really use all of the track that you have available to you. However, for the first few laps, you're really going to want to stick to the dry part of the track. That way you're not pushed artificially wide on corners or go too deep because you hit a puddle and now you can't turn all of a sudden. With the race being 12 laps, you don't need to stress if you're not in first place by the time you reach lap 1 or 2. You do have time to get into first place in this race. It's not like one of those races where if you're not in first place by lap 5, there's no hope for you. So focus on remaining calm, sticking to your lines, and making sure that you're as consistent as possible. That is going to be the true key here, is making sure that you're as consistent as you can be. Right here is a prime example of the straight line speed that I was talking about with the NSX. It has 8 gears that you're able to play with, so you end up with a much higher top end speed than a lot of other cars in this race. And because this straight takes up such a large portion of the track, this is going to be the most key part of your race. You can already see how many overtakes happened on that straight alone, with the remainder coming from smaller segments of straights where you can gain a lot of speed. Also rip the clean race bonus as I accidentally slam into the back of the car in front of me there. Whoopsies. Almost at half race here, and through consistency you can see that we've been climbing up the grid. We're now in P3, battling against the GTR to try and hold this position around the outside. We are going to make the move stick, and the next and most important thing there is to pull away. The GTR is one of the most dangerous cars you're going to come across on the long straight of this track. Speaking of long straights, here is the fastest lap that I promised earlier in the video. While it's not an earth-shattering record in terms of lap times, it is a clear indicator of what I was trying to accomplish on every single lap. As you barrel down the long straight, you're going to want to keep your eye out for the first landmark. The first landmark is this dotted line here. The reason this dotted line is a key landmark for me is because when you're coming across it, if you let go of the throttle, it helps save fuel on every lap. as you head towards the braking zone into turn 1. However, you're not going to want to brake here. You're going to want to just coast until you hit the 200 board. That's when you're going to brake. As you can see, the minute I hit the 200 board, I'm hard on the brakes and I come down into 3rd gear for turn 1. If you apply a little bit of trail braking and make that one solid smooth motion instead of a bunch of choppy braking motions, you're going to be able to carry a lot of momentum around that corner and put yourself in a much better path through turn 2 onto this kind of semi-straight. The reason why I like that coasting bit is because you're essentially at max speed by the time you get there, so there's no point in holding the throttle opening and just wasting fuel if you're not going to go any faster. The next portion of the track around these S's is a little bit challenging to keep the car balanced. You want to try and keep as much momentum as possible and create as straight as a line as you can through those 2 little bends. Those 2 little bends will eventually lead to this long sweeping right-hander. The most important thing here is keeping your momentum up. I like to allow the car to settle, get through the corner, and once you're established, then you can hammer on. Same thing for this left. You want to come off the throttle, allow the car's weight to kind of shift back and forth, come around the corner, and then hammer on again. Braking between the 150 board there, call it the 75 board if you will, and dropping down into 4th gear allows you to set up for this left-hander, which when done right, allows you to essentially go 100% throttle at the apex, which sets you up very nicely for not only this little straight, but also landmark number 2. The second important landmark here is going to be the 200 board. For the same reason we made note of the dotted line on the road, you're going to want to let go of the throttle once you hit the 200 board, and then you're going to want to hit the brakes just before you hit the 150 board. Call it the 160 or 155 board. I found that in my testing, when you hit the brakes too late at this, you're going to go super deep into the hairpin that leads onto the long straight and compromise that corner, which you lose a lot of time on if not done correctly. So let's see what this looks like when we throttle off at 200 and brake just before 150. As you approach the hairpin, you're going to want to be in the 2nd gear, trail brake a little bit around the corner. Problem is, it's a little bit hard to manage the car here. A lot of times the back end is going to want to step out from behind you, as that has been a pretty consistent case, at least when I'm driving. Feel free to comment skill issue if you want. With that all out of the way, the last thing is to just throttle on and try to carry as much speed through the straight. This, as I said before, is the most important and vital part of this track for you, as this is where all of the big gains happen. Eventually, as you circle around the track, keeping in mind all of your landmarks and braking points, you're going to have to come in for a pit stop. Luckily, the pit strategy here is very simple. You're going to not change any tires, and you're just going to fill up the fuel tank to wherever it needs to be for you to finish the race. My rule of thumb is to fuel up between a half lap and a full lap higher than what the game says you're going to need to finish the race. The reason for that is because I would rather have a little bit too much fuel than not have enough to be able to full throttle at the finish line. It gives you a little bit of cushion to play with, so you don't have to be so anal about all of the fuel saving. Once the pit stop is done, you'll be sent out back on the track. One really important thing to keep in mind is that during the out lap, you're not going to be going as fast down the straight as you would on a normal lap. So ignore the landmark coming into T1 and brake either normally at the 200 board or just after, depending on the speed you're able to accomplish down this straight. I did not keep that in mind on my outlap, so you can see I kind of do this awkward dance of hitting the throttle and the brake as I go into T1 because I'm not carrying enough speed. The other thing to note at this point is when you're in the pits, you're probably going to be jumped by a few AI that are going to be pitting on later laps. Don't freak out if you see that the leader is 20 or 30 seconds ahead of you. Just know that they're going to have to pit, which is exactly what happened in this race here with P1. And you'll notice that we're going to not quite catch P1 while they're still in the pits as they come out just before we're able to get to them, but we are going to be able to go blazing past them as we have so much extra speed compared to them coming out of the pits versus us having the entire straight to take advantage of. And you can also see how the leader time went from 20 seconds ahead to 3 seconds ahead, which is much more manageable. On the next lap, you can see the two in front of us are actually going to pit together, so now we are the leaders of this race, exactly where we want to be. The one tip I can say is that you always want to keep in mind who has pitted and who hasn't pitted so that you can kind of figure out at what point in the race are you kind of screwed, or at what point in the race are you going to be able to finish it. The only thing we had to do here was finish the last 3 laps, which we do successfully. coming across the line in a glorious E1. That's really all there is to it. Don't be scared of this weekly race, just know that you want to keep as calm as possible and focus on being as consistent as possible. I wish you the best of luck in this weekly challenge if you are having troubles with it. One quick parting tip I will say as well here in the outro is that if you do see that a car is coming into your slipstream down a long straight like this one, feel free to move off of the racing line in order to keep your speed and hamper theirs without giving them slipstream. Unlike in multiplayer, the AI actually will not move over with you to capture your slipstream and will try and still drag race you without the slip. That's handy if you find yourself constantly losing positions or potentially losing races to the AI behind because they're in your slipstream. I hope you enjoyed this video and may have learned a little something from it. If you did, feel free to slap a thumbs up on the video. If you're new here, feel free to hit that subscribe button. I'd love to see you around in future videos. If you did not, let me know down below why. I'm always looking to improve my videos, and any tips or tricks you have for me means the world. Also, feel free to let me know if you have tried to tackle this weekly challenge so far, and if you did, how did it go? What was your car setup for this race? I'm curious to see how diverse these setups can be that work for this type of race. I'll also leave links down below in the description as I said before. While you're there, feel free to check out the rest of my channel as well as my social media, as we're trying to grow a little bit of a community here to have some like-minded people enjoy some racing. If you made it this far, thank you so much. I really appreciate you finding my little slice of internet, and I hope to see you around soon. Have a good day or night depending on when and where you're watching this. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.